Okay. Hey, thank you so much for being here and being our guest today.
Great being here, Jesse. Nice to see you again.
Yeah, you as well. You as well. I've been excited to have you as a guest today. And I want to give the listeners a good idea. Just to start off, what got you into the recruiting world?
It was a total accident, actually. So in college, my original plan was to go to law school.
Okay.
And I ended up doing a work study in the Career Services Office of Columbia Law School to help them plan their campus recruiting program, right? So every fall, all the big law firms across the country come and try to recruit the graduating law students. And I
Mhm.
thought, well, I have no lawyers in my family. What a great way to get exposure to that industry, right? And that turned into my first job in a legal recruiting coordinator role at Baker and McKenzie. And as soon as I started that job after graduation, all the incoming first year lawyers were like, Regina, get me out of here. I hate this place. And I was like, what is going on? And I was still like, I had just graduated. I was thinking I was going to work 2 years, apply to law school, like the typical pattern. And everybody hated their life. And I was like, I have to put this idea on pause and see what, if there are other opportunities. But I really liked the recruiting aspect. I didn't realize until then that it was actual career path.
Mhm.
And then from there, I got recruited to start the investment banking analyst recruiting program for Bear Stearns. So it's a
Okay.
complete startup. They were just starting to go to campus, so I helped build that from zero, I think 10 schools to over 200 schools that we were going to, and then
Mhm.
managing the training program. And I was like, oh, I'm going to go to business school instead, and
Mhm.
just continue down this path. And then I landed after business school at an executive search firm. So I
Mhm.
moved from corporate to executive search, and it was with a boutique agency that was all about startups. You know, the first wave of dot coms that were like online media magazines and stuff like that. And I just fell in love. It was so great. Like all you do all day is ask people what their dream job is. I mean, it's
Mhm.
tell me
Yeah.
about business, talk about trends and all this stuff. So it just kind of unfolded that way. And um, this is actually now the second search firm that I've launched on my own. One thing I've focused on from the very beginning was diversity and inclusion and all of that stuff, even when it wasn't a hot topic like it has been in the last few years, because I was like, being in corporate for my early career and never seeing anyone who looked like me. I
Ah,
was very aware of like, there's got to be ways to get people who look like me in the door at the places I'm at. So when I went to the executive search side, I kept building that into how I help build the practices. So
yeah.
my first, and I have a tendency, this is really strange, but I tend to launch my search firms during major recessions. So the first time was in 2009. Um,
Wow.
and then the second one was fall of 2019, not realizing that COVID was like 6 months away.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. How was that for you? How was it when COVID hit for you and your
Well, that was a crazy experience. I completely had to do a pivot. So 2019 September, I had spent a few years back in corporate recruiting, working in the big holding companies like the agency world, right? And
Mhm.
I really miss working with startups. So I was like, it's time to kind of go back out and pursue that again, because that was really where I love, building those early teams. I loved high growth companies. So I built a very like great client base. Mostly there was a nonprofit there, and then two SaaS companies in ad tech and martech were the ones I was working with. So I
Mhm.
had that all lined up. I went into first quarter, like getting these deals ready to go and these projects online. And I was like, okay, so second quarter is going to be awesome. I have all this stuff coming through.
Mhm.
So I went, did I mention to you that I'm a competitive tango dancer?
No, you didn't. No.
Okay, so that's my hobby, but I've been
Yeah.
doing that for 10 years. And in February of 2020, my friend and I were going to go to our first international festival in Istanbul. And I
Okay.
thought, okay, great, I'll take this break, come back, and I'll be ready to jump into all this new stuff.
Hmm.
So we left on February 29th, 2020. We're gone for 10 days. And we got back into New York City like 2 days before the entire city shut down, and they shut down the airports and everything.
Wow.
We didn't even know, like, we were hearing about stuff, but like people in Turkey weren't talking about it. But we were noticing like a lot of attendees to the festival started canceling last minute because they were scared, of getting stuck. And
Hmm.
I mean, I flew through the airport. No one was even wearing masks yet. No one knew anything that was going on, right? We get back 2 days before the shutdown. All of my clients send everybody home. And then this was the crazy part. Within a week of my getting back, all of my clients fired me because they said, obviously, we're not doing any recruiting right now. We don't know
Yeah.
what's going on, right? Then I found out a guy on my flight back died of COVID.
Oh, wow.
And I
Yeah.
was sitting 2 seats away from him. So no mask. I was in his airspace for the
Uh-huh.
entire flight, like the Frankfurt to JFK leg of the flight. And the only reason I knew this happened is because he was a famous chef that I followed on Instagram. His last post, he was in the emergency room, and then a few days later, it came through that he died, and he was one of the first cases. So I freaked out. I called all my doctor friends, and I was like, "Wait, I was sitting next to this guy on the plane. What do I do?" And they were like, "What are your symptoms?" And I don't know. I have a cold. Like, I always have a cold after a long flight. And it
Yeah.
was this moment in time where in New York, they were like, do not go to the emergency room unless you have serious, serious symptoms. They will
Hmm.
not see you. So
Hmm.
I lost all my clients. I thought I had COVID or could get it, and I couldn't leave my apartment.
Hmm. Yeah. What what an experience. Yeah.
So I was like, what do I do now? And I smart thing I did the second time around though, is that I built my support network, like my own board, so that
Hmm.
I could go to them, like experts and mentors that I knew that they were either entrepreneurs themselves or great at marketing or whatever they're doing, right? But they always gave me great advice on how to build my business. So I kind of tapped into all of that to be like, how do you how do you bounce back from this? Because I mean, I called everybody I knew, and they're like, Regina, we're not hiring in these sectors. Like online media was my typical client,
Hmm.
advertising related business. They were like, nothing is going on.
Right.
So what happened was I'm part of a lot of these HR Slack communities,
Hmm.
like professionals talking about the business and kind of things that they need help with and things like that. So I started watching, just what are people talking about, right? So the first few weeks, it was all about work from home. How are we going to move all of our operations and take care of our employees and all of this stuff? And that like settled in after a while, right? Because everyone was like, okay, this is not 2 weeks. We're like in for the summer at the minimum.
Right.
So what I noticed after probably about 2 months in from that, the chatter on those channels started to change. And it was like, okay, now we have to just get back to work. Right.
Yeah.
And the companies that started kind of thinking again about now, it's time to hire, we have positions to fill. It was all in digital health and health tech.
Hmm.
So I was trying to network my way into that because that wasn't my area of experience. My typical clients are like online media, SaaS companies, and creator led companies like the YouTubers of the world, right? Um,
Hmm.
but I was like, I know how to recruit for go to market roles and leadership roles. So
Yeah.
it all changed when my first client posted on a channel, does anyone here have experience with diversity recruiting?
Hmm.
And I said, that's exactly what I do. And within 5 days, I had my first contract with them to help them hire salespeople for a patient engagement technology company. That was so, and it was like back to the races. So that's how I pivoted. And then I kind of stayed in that space where I learned a ton about that industry,
Hmm.
and started building my network there. And as the market started to pick back up, the rest of my business just came back to life.
Amazing. Amazing. Yeah. And it's obviously it bounced back, right? And
Yeah.
I want to make sure that the listeners do understand who is your typical candidate or typical client and typical candidate now.
Yeah. Okay. So typical client is Series A to kind of Fortune 1000. But in, again, online media,
Mm-hmm.
digital health and health tech, and everything across SaaS, basically. Software as a service is a big, and it could be in whatever industry. It could be in advertising, it could be marketing, it could be content, whatever. And most of the roles I fill are sales, business development, marketing. That's kind of the core, and leadership positions. But I can recruit for anything on the business side of the house. I don't do technical recruiting or engineers or anything like that. Right now, I'm doing a lot of work in product development for
Mm-hmm.
AI empowered SaaS companies. And then the other one, I have a chief marketing officer role that I'm working on for a kids toy company. So
Perfect.
yeah,
Yeah.
it ranges. And
Yeah.
my candidates, I would say the core is really more mid to senior level to C-suite.
Mm-hmm.
Very like occasionally I'll do more entry level. It depends how I'm engaged by the company, because I do executive search, but sometimes with these early stage companies, I also become like the outsourced recruiting partner. So the founder says we have 10 jobs to hire for, we have no internal team, so I just become an extension of their team, deal directly with all of their hiring managers, and it's more volume. Like we have 5 sales roles we need to fill, or 3 marketing positions, and then I go out and kind of represent them in the market until we fill those roles. And occasionally I even find their full-time replacement for recruiting so that they can carry on with the growth of their company.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you for filling us in there, just so
Yeah.
that people have a good understanding. I know there's a broad range, but it's nice to get that idea for all the listeners. And my question for you is, executives looking to make a change, looking to stand out in their career and make a move,
Yeah.
what's something that might be hurting them that they don't realize?
Okay. So I'll preface this by saying this is the craziest market I have seen ever.
Mm-hmm.
So I think I mean, you could probably guess that the competition right now is still really fierce, right?
Mm-hmm.
And tons of people are still in market, very senior people who've been displaced. I think the one mistake that a lot of people make, especially the ones who haven't looked for a job in the last 5 years, they're using all the same tactics from before.
Mm-hmm.
That's not working anymore. Like the number of senior people that I hear are like, but I'm just applying to jobs. Like that is the biggest waste of your time, because most of these companies in the last 2 years, first of all, HR and recruiting got decimated, right? Like they let
Mm-hmm.
all those people go. So if they are in hiring mode, that is an under-resourced team right now. So that's why you keep applying, you get no response, because companies are like, they do one job posting. It's not unusual these days to get like 1,000 applications in 2 hours, right? But
Mm-hmm.
who's going to wade through 2,000 applications? Who has time for that? So it's hiring managers. I'm seeing that they're going back to a referral network, right? You see the postings on LinkedIn. I have an opening on my team. Send me your best contacts, right?
Mm-hmm.
Tell me who I should hire. So you senior level candidates, they have to get into that referral stream, and the only way to do it is through targeted networking.
Mm-hmm.
They have to tap into who they already know, and then expand on that to kind of lead to their next opportunity. I think the other thing that I realized in this last like year and a half or so, when it's been really, really tough out there, most senior people have never had to run their own job search.
Mm-hmm.
Everyone's used to being recruited. Right? Like, oh no, a firm called me and this is how I made that move. When they have to be in their own driver's seat, it's a
Mm-hmm.
totally different process. And I think a lot of people don't realize that that's what has to be done in this market.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
I see that a lot with our clients as well. The market has definitely changed within the last 5 years.
Yeah.
And I want to kind of summarize that just to make sure the listeners really understand. I try to preach this to all of our clients is, don't just cold apply 24/7, right? Even, spend 10% of your time there, but network, utilize your network that you currently have, strategic networking. I love that you mentioned that. so that
Yep.
you can be referred to these positions, because I mean, it's a really good point that you're making, that these staffs, these hiring, not hiring, but the HR, the recruiting side of these companies are understaffed. And so you
Right.
need to make sure
Right.
that your resume isn't just getting lost in a pile, right?
Right.
Obviously, we take care of the resumes for our clients, but when they need it to be seen by a pair of eyes, you can't just have it be lost in a
Exactly.
pile of 1,000 resumes. So
Right.
that is really good to know. Thank you for saying that. And let's dive into deeper about hiring trends. What other trends are you seeing right now when it comes to hiring?
So I think the other caveat to that strategic networking is that we are in a market where there's a lot of first time hiring managers and first time founders, right? So it's very hard for them to assess senior talent
Mm-hmm.
because they don't have that experience themselves,
Mm-hmm.
right? So,
Yeah.
I'm working with a bunch of Series A founders. It's their first time doing this. They've never even built a team before, but now they're tasked with building an organization.
Mm-hmm.
So it takes a person a lot of awareness to be like, I don't know what I don't know, and I need to get help. I need somebody
Yeah.
who's done this before, right? So making that leap from like, it's startups, like what you love about them is the energy in the beginning. Everyone's like all in and they'll do anything to make it happen. But typical mistake in startups, you hire all of your closest friends. And I've never seen it happen that all of your friends will have all the technical skills you need to build a really good business.
Yeah.
So you waste a lot of time with people in the wrong seats, and then you get to a point of growth where you're like, oh crap, now we have to do something else. The stuff we were doing before isn't working. Why is that? Well, because none of you've never done it before and you've never built anything.
Mm-hmm.
So maybe it's time to bring in somebody who knows a little bit of how to do this, right? So evaluate, like making that leap to say, okay, now it's time to level up in this function. Usually it's a sales role or a go to market role, right? Because if you're not getting clients, you're not going to survive. So
Yeah.
figuring out what those first key hires look like when you're really thinking about leadership and growth. What will, and then there's always that cultural stuff, like will they fit, all these things. And I think you have to just focus on kind of where are the people who will help us catapult to our next stage, because you
Mm-hmm.
can't build it all. You're like, why hire a junior salesperson when you can find a really talented person who knows how to build sales organizations and probably already knows the clients that you need to land?
Mm-hmm.
They already
Right.
have the relationship, right? So I
Mm-hmm.
think it's that nuance there. And again, getting the advice to be like, you have to be strategic in how you bring in your senior talent. And the other role that I always see that's always a mistake, it's always overlooked, HR and recruiting.
Mm-hmm.
Everyone always puts in who's the best networker that I know, they can do recruiting. And you're like, okay. Do they know
Yeah.
how to assess the skills that you need for your organization? That's not a natural thing, right? So,
Right.
and it's happened to me many times. I get hired because they're like, Regina, we can't fill these roles because we don't know what we're looking for.
Mm-hmm.
Or HR is brought in and the entire organization is a mess because no one knew how to follow basic employment laws that needed to be complied with. You know what I mean? Like, and you're going, wait a second, that could have been like, you should always overhire for your sales role and your HR role, because the growing pains of any company, 0 to 150, 150 to 500, all
Mm-hmm.
the same. Doesn't matter what your industry is. You
Mm-hmm.
need somebody who understands how to build a foundation that will not break as you get to your 500th hire,
Right.
because it's a waste of time, right? Like, okay, now you have to fix everything. You're going 250 miles an hour. Now we have to fix the engine. And you're like, that's awful.
Yeah, and I mean, it sounds like kind of a good thing for candidates. I mean, correct me if I'm wrong here. Please do. Don't worry. I'm
Mm-hmm.
happy to be corrected all the time. Sounds like candidates need to understand who the potential employers are, right? Understand, okay, this might be a first-time founder. This might be somebody that's
Yeah.
never hired for this role before,
Mm-hmm.
but the compensation's there for you, right? It's exactly what you need, but you need to understand who you're interviewing with, who that potential employer will be, so you sell
Yep.
yourself in the right light, right? Because
Yep.
they don't know what they're looking for sometimes. And strategic networking, I know it's huge for our company, right? If I have a really close colleague that refers somebody, right, you're going to give them a little closer look than you're going to give somebody that cold applies on
Exactly.
LinkedIn for your role, right?
Exactly.
It's simple things, but it's so crucial, especially in today's market, right? If you're going to land a position when there's high competition.
Yep.
So is is that a good way to summarize that? Is that a good way to say it?
Absolutely. And I would say too, that point you made about knowing who the hiring manager is. Yeah, you have to change your narrative
Mm-hmm.
to make it work for them at that moment of time and that growth for their company, right? Because it's not a different, this position never existed before in their organization. So you
Mm-hmm.
kind of have to educate them a little bit about, okay, yes, I bring this skill set, but here are the other things I can help with in terms of building a foundation for the function,
Mm-hmm.
right? Like really digging deep into the process itself, not
Mm-hmm.
just the high end strategic stuff. Because at that point, they really need people who can do both. You can flex between strategy and execution.
Yeah. And the interview just isn't a one size fits all. It's nobody's looking
No,
for
and
every
no one does
what's relevant. Yeah.
sufficient interview training. Like they
Mhm.
don't even know what to ask sometimes. Or some I've seen it again, first time hiring manager example. They're so stuck in the minutia of like the day to day.
Mhm.
They don't think about the more strategic things. Like, well, what will this look like a year from now? Again, they've never seen it. So why would you imagine that question at all? Right. So
Right.
again, this is where you have to kind of really think how you lay out your interview process. If you have to script the questions, do it. You know what I mean? So that you
Yeah.
can prepare to get the information that you actually need to make a sound hiring decision.
Mhm. Yeah. And I want to pivot a little bit more because I want to dive in deeper on something that we've been hitting. What's the biggest mistake you're seeing companies make when hiring new employees?
Ooh, biggest mistake. Well, I think interview processes are way too long. You have
Mhm.
too many decision makers. And I mean, I know this anecdotally because I've had so many executives who are looking say to me, Regina, I was talking to a startup there of only like 50 people. I had to meet 10 and then they ghosted me.
Mhm.
Why is that even happening? Like, figure out who the real key people are to make this hire. It doesn't have to be this consent, like, they don't have to meet everybody, right?
Mhm.
Be strategic about that process because, again, yes, right now it is an employer's market, but
Mhm.
the candidate experience is terrible. That says a lot. It doesn't like help anybody buy into the culture of your company if you've got such a long, tedious, indecisive hiring process.
Mhm.
That's actually a red flag for a lot of people.
Yeah.
And and I always say this, it's a very small world. You will cross paths again.
Mhm.
And if that person had a terrible experience as a candidate, I don't think they're going to be your client later on.
Yeah, I agree. And they're not going to want to, once you can hire them, once you realize, oh, maybe I made a mistake, right? I should have hired them, whatever it is. Going back to them is not going to be easy, right? Because
Yeah,
you put them through the ringer and you wasted their time. And time is
exactly.
the most expensive commodity people have. Right?
Exactly. Yeah.
So,
So I think the processes need to be shorter. I think they have to be 100% transparent. Um, and I think the other piece where people fall short is the onboarding,
mm,
really figuring out how to set somebody up for success from day one.
mhm,
And yeah, sometimes you don't have those resources, especially if you're a startup or a growing company, right? But there should be a real plan for somebody, like at least for the first month they're there. What's going to happen? How do they get integrated into your culture and organization?
yeah. It's almost like it's a thread going through this conversation today of there's what the employer's looking for and what the candidate is looking for. They both, before they meet, before they hire, before they look to be hired, they need to have
Yeah,
an understanding of what value they bring and what value they need somebody to bring, right? Like what you mentioned, right? I mean,
exactly.
employers might not actually know. So you kind of need to sit down I mean, sometimes I'll even go and just have a conversation with Chat GPT, right? I know a lot of people, it's a huge thing right now. You just have a conversation with AI and say, these are all my thoughts. What am I actually thinking?
Yeah,
Summarize,
yeah,
make it concise. And then people, I mean, you don't have to use AI, but it's just a fun little example. It's on the top of my mind today. But talk with your team and make sure you know who you're looking for. Hire the right talent
yeah,
so that you have a clear path, but also as the candidate, make sure you're not, just freeballing it, right? You don't want to just,
yeah.
I'm just going to talk about everything I've done in my career because they also don't care, right? Because they're time,
Right, right. Well,
right?
yeah, that's the other part. That this is the part about the storytelling that I was mentioning, and I noticed it's different because again, you have to be in like pitch mode, right?
Hmm.
And you can't just say, "Oh, look at my LinkedIn, look at my resume," because
Hmm.
I, not everybody knows the context of the businesses that you're in, right? Like explain. Sometimes you need a little bit of an, what are the common threads in your background? What ties everything together? Like I love it when people say, the one thing I do in every company is I'm a builder.
Hmm.
The function didn't exist before I got there, so this is what I did, and I do it at every company. That's a compelling opener, and I'm like, tell me more. How did you do that? But when you start an interview and it's like, I know walk me through your resume is pretty standard, but the candidate actually does walk you through every move they made, and I'm like, I'm always asking, but why? Why did you do that? What was the motivation? And again, it goes back to, well, my friend worked there and recruited me over, or a recruiter called me and I ended up in this job. But really, what were you looking for? Right? In hindsight, there should be a story to the arc of your career,
Right. Right.
right?
Nobody's just going to take a role. I mean,
Yeah,
people will take calls for different positions, and you'll have friends and family or whoever reach out to you about different roles all the time, right?
yeah,
Doesn't mean you're going to take them all, right?
right.
So you need to have the overarching why,
Yeah,
why,
yeah, yeah,
and have a clear way to showcase that why. Correct me if I'm wrong, but really showcase that why in a way that's relevant for the hiring team.
exactly, exactly. Yeah, yeah. You have to connect the dots for them, is because no one. The other problem is everyone has such a short attention span these days, right?
Hmm.
So how do you break through all of the, yes, you might have a great LinkedIn profile, but what is it really telling me? And
Yeah.
how is it going to help my company right now?
Hmm. Yeah. I
That's what
mean,
they want to find out.
yeah, the last stat I read was, people spend 6 seconds on a LinkedIn or a resume before they decide what they're going to think about you, right?
Right.
And so the way I think about it, I mean, we do executive resumes, biographies, and LinkedIn's. That's what we do. That's our bread and butter.
Yeah.
But the reality is the resume and your networking, that's going to get you open, that's going to open the door for you,
Right.
right? But then in
Exactly.
all reality, if you want to stay in, you need to really hit a home run on the interview, right?
Right.
You can't
Right.
just say, well, this is just my resume, or just read over
Yeah.
it. Right? You can say, okay,
Well,
you've seen it
and
all. You like it back. But
and I'm
yeah.
sure because you're doing this every day, I mean, right now, the best thing to do on your resume and LinkedIn is to distill and just highlight the most impactful things that you've done for each of your organizations, right? Give as many numbers, quantify as much as you can, talk about the growth story and your successes. How you did it, that's for the interview.
Mhm.
Because again, they're scanning. They're always like, what can this person do for me and my company? So if you can make those connections happen for them faster, your whole goal is like, somebody gets your resume, you want whoever gets it to be compelled to call you, right?
Mhm.
And tons and tons of paragraphs and no bullet, it's like, I can't even read that these
Yep.
days, like
Yeah.
I want to be like, okay, this is the person. I'm going to stop right here, pick up the phone or send an email and say, we need to talk because we're working on this. That's really your goal, if you're looking for a job right now.
I cannot tell you how many times I see a resume that's either blank with the name on the top or it's 6 pages long and it's just
Yeah.
paragraphs and paragraphs. And it's hard. I mean, it is hard when you're at
Yeah.
the level, you've been a VP, even in the C-suite, you've done it all. It is hard to consolidate that into a 2-page resume, right?
Right. Right.
Got to be done because nobody's going to read it. Nobody's going to take the time. And like what you mentioned, the bullet
Yeah.
points, I mean, I love what you're saying. People are probably, sometimes I think people might think I'm giving you a script of what to answer because that is exactly what I tell all of our clients. And so
Yeah.
that is
Well,
just,
it's called adapting to your audience right now, right? So if your audience has 6 seconds of attention span,
Mhm.
they're not going to read blocks of text.
Yeah.
I mean, that's the simple. And again, also think about the devices. I tell people, I've been saying this for years. I could be looking at your resume on my phone.
Yeah.
If I see a block of text here, it's like swipe
Yep.
left.
Take up the entire
Yeah,
screen. One
yeah.
paragraph.
Forget it. No way.
Yep. I agree. Regina, thank you so much. I want to
Yeah,
have you on as a guest again. I appreciate your time today.
sure.
And what I want to make sure that anybody listening, potential clients, potential candidates, what's the best way
Mhm.
to find you?
So you can reach me by email, Regina at talentnowsolutions.com, or go to our website, talentnowsolutions.com. Yeah.
Perfect. Okay.
Yeah.
I'll include those for everybody that's going to be listening. I'll include those in the information below. But Regina,
Yeah.
thank you again. And hopefully we can have you
Absolutely.
on again soon.
Great. This was fun. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Bye.